There it is. There it is. What's going on, family? I'm Jonathan Jones, your podcast mentor. And today I wanted us just to talk about three things, right? By doing these three things, this will help us ultimately grow our listenership, increase our downloads, and even build a significant following by doing these one, two, three things. Can you guess what those are? We're going to get into that in today's episode. Welcome to the Your Podcast Mentor Show with Jonathan Jones. Here you will learn how to start, launch, and monetize your podcast. In addition to hearing the latest trends and the latest and greatest things happening in the podcast industry. Are you ready? There we go. 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 Family. So look, here it is. Here it is. We're back for episode number 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. I'm excited to be here with you all today. And today I wanted to talk about something that I think a lot of times can be lost just in transition and getting a podcast out, right? Getting a podcast out, being excited about the content that you're putting out, being excited about the show. But there's a point where people want to continue to build and people want to continue to position themselves. However, time and time again, I've heard many people say they started, they stopped, they quit, they didn't have the passion behind the podcast. And the interesting thing is that they weren't getting the numbers that they wanted to see, right? A lot of times we're just not honest with ourselves, because who wants to begin to have a plant? Right? Who wants to have a plant to where ultimately you water it and you never see it grow? You just see it die, right? You have a plant, you have a animal or a pet, and you're like, I want to see it grow. I want to see something happen, but then nothing ever happens, right? So really quick, if you're listening on YouTube, or you're watching on YouTube, I would encourage you to hit that subscribe and like button, and you can follow us at Jonathan Jones Speaks on the YouTube. Okay, Jonathan Jones Speaks. But the first thing I want to talk about today, we're going to unpack 3 keys to winning the click. All right, 3 keys to winning the click. And I like to call it 3 keys to winning the click because I believe that in this space of being a podcaster, there are so many choices for people to decide or decipher to go with, right? There are what's advertised as millions of shows out there in podcast land, even though just over 600,000 are active. And we'll talk about that a whole nother day. But the first thing that we have to take in mind or take account for is our podcast cover, right? Our podcast cover is one of the first things that will help us ultimately win the click. Why is that? Because you want to have a podcast cover which is bright. Okay. You want to have a podcast cover which catches people's eyes. And you might say, John, well, how do I do that? You want to have something that has like bold color, large font. Okay. You want to make sure that it's easy to read. So you want people when they're scrolling to stop and say, wait, what's that? Wait, what show is that? I don't know about that show. Let me check that. Let me check that out. So a cover is one of the ways to where we'll attract our potential listener. And the reason I say that is because of the simple fact that we're told don't judge books by their cover, but we always do, right? When you go to the bookstore, when you go look at magazines, you're looking at what's the headline on the magazine, what's the story for the day, whatever that thing might. You're like, wait, whoa, what's that? Whoa. And then that forces you to open it up. Wait, Cosmopolitan's talking about 5 ways to keep a man. Man, what's Cosmopolitan talking about? So we want to take into account what's going on our cover. We want to make sure that it's not cluttered with all this different art and all these other things. We want to have a bold choice, right? Bold being bold with the font, and then also have a solid cover. So that's the first way to make sure that we win the click. All right. The second thing that we want to consider here, is what type of content are you putting out there? Have you polled your audience? Are you putting content out that people actually want to hear? Are you putting out content that is relevant for your target audience? And if you haven't done your market research, then more than likely you are not. Okay. You want to make sure that you know what your people need, and then you want to make sure that you are the one to provide it for them. If you don't, then they're going to come, they're going to listen, they're going to say, oh, this isn't for me, and then they're going to leave. But if you've never identified who your target audience is, or you never identified who your niche is, like we talked about just last week, if you never identify what your niche is, then you'll never be able to identify who your content is serving. And you want to make sure that you know who your content is serving, because based on who your content is serving, then you know if this is for teenagers, if this is for young adults, if this is for parents. Okay. The people at the PTSA meeting are gonna want a different level of information than a student in 10th grade, 8th grade. Somebody who is in their 40s is going to want a different information than somebody who just turned 21. Somebody who's in their 40s might be looking at retirement, might be looking at insurance plans, right? Might be looking at ways that they can ultimately do less work. Somebody who's 21 might not even be thinking about work. All right. Does that make sense? So we want to take into account the content that we're putting out into the world. And last but not least, family, and this is one that that I think takes a little time for all of us to nestle into. And one of the things I learned when I was just getting into high school, I used to walk around the halls and I would have a hunched over back, right? For those of you on YouTube, you can see me with my back hunched over. For those of you listening podcast land, you can't see me, but I'm hunching over my back because I was about 6'4" in high school. So I was one of the taller kids at my school. And my mom would say to me, son, what are you doing? Hunching your back over like that? She would say, son, you have to stand up straight. Stand up straight. If not, you're gonna eventually your back gonna get stuck like that. You're gonna mess yourself up. Stand up straight, son. What she was trying to help me understand is I was not comfortable in my own skin. So now today I'm 6'5". I stand up tall. I walk with my chest out. But the thing she wanted me to get comfortable was being who I was, being who I am, owning my own style, owning my own stature. And that's the last thing I would encourage you to do today is own who you are as a creator. Own your own style. And when you own your own style, and when you own who you are as a creator, there's nobody who can take that away from you. Nobody can beat you being you and being your best self. Nobody can combat that, point blank, period. All right. So the reason I say that is because when it comes to winning a click, people are going to go with those who they authentically resonate with. People are going to go with those who they see something in them. They see a level of confidence. They see a level of individuality. They see a level of uniqueness. They say, oh, wow, I like such and such over there. Oh, wow, I like Andre over there because the way she shows up and the way she reads poetry. Wow, I like such and such on that side. Just the way they do things a little bit differently over there. So ultimately, in order for us to win the click, we have to make sure that first things first, our cover stands out, right? There's a sea of covers on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, all over. We want to make sure that it stands out. If it's bold, if it's bold text, if it's bright colors, if it's a dope picture of us wearing like a nice, colorful, whatever, we want to take that into account. The second thing is we have to make sure that we're intentional about our content. What content are you putting out into the world? What content are you feeding your audience? And are you feeding your audience the content that they need and that they desire? And number three, you're the creator, right? You have to hone in on your own creativity. You have to own your own style because that is not up for debate. And if you need help with any one of those three, if you need any additional help to start your podcast, to launch your podcast, and to monetize your podcast, I would encourage you to go to jonathanjonesspeaks.com/coaching. That's Jonathan Jones Speaks jonathanjonespeaks.com/coaching. I would love to serve and support you and help you to take that idea from your head or take that idea from your heart and then put it out into the world. It is your podcast mentor. And I just want to encourage you that if this episode gave you any value at all, just to, the best way to help the show is to follow the show on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts, and then write a helpful review so that a friend, a buddy, a pal that needs this information can get it. All right. So without further ado, Jonathan Jones, your podcast mentor. Connect with me on all platforms at Jonathan Jones Speaks. Until next time, my friends, always remember the focus that I have for this show is to help you establish your platform so that you can profit on purpose. Take care. We'll see you next time.